even show you a photo if I may, okay? Do you truly, in your heart of hearts, truly believe that this is a human being? This,
without a doubt.
Without a doubt?
Yes.
This is a dolphin fetus. Without a doubt, a dolphin fetus is a human being. This is a human fetus. Look how similar they look. In life, you confuse dolphins for human babies often.
So let me
you go to SeaWorld and you're like, someone's got human babies in that aquarium. Get the human babies out of the aquarium.
Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be reacting to an abortion debate between Ben Glebe, I think is how you say his last name, I'm not sure, and Charlie Kirk. This was actually brought to my attention when I saw somebody covering a clip from this debate. I'll mention the clip when we get to it, but I was really intrigued, to say the least, by that clip, and it made me want to watch the whole thing. I've talked about abortion and being pro-choice more than a few times on my channel, and there's a couple of videos for that. I will link them up there if you want to take a look at those. I'm just ready to get into this, so let's just go ahead.
Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of Debate Night. With us tonight is Ben Glebe. I say that right?
Perfect.
Comedian,
Kirk, right?
Okay, Ben Glebe. I did say that right.
Here today on the set, two people who thankfully were not aborted. So Ben, first statement for you.
When we're done with this debate, maybe you'll be questioning that statement.
About you?
About yourself.
We'll see.
A pretty contentious issue.
I think the short clip that I saw where somebody was reacting to a clip of this, I think they mentioned that Ben Glebe is a comedian. If so, I need to watch some of his comedy. Now, for the record, I'm not like on anybody's side here. I'm on being pro-choice, okay, for having safe, accessible abortion access to all people that can get pregnant. But just to be clear, I don't know anything about Ben Glebe, so I just don't want it to seem like I'm, I guess, like pro Ben Glebe, because I don't know anything about him, so I don't know all of his takes. But that shit was funny. Something I did notice in the small clip that I have seen before, the choice of language, because it's not just women who are impacted by abortion access. It's not just women who can get pregnant. Not everyone who can get pregnant identifies as a woman, and not all women can get pregnant. I'll probably point that out a few times, but I'm not going to continue to repeat it throughout the entirety of this video. I do wish that more inclusive language was being used here. However, the debate would probably be derailed because that's how these right-wing conservatives are, because then we're talking about trans issues and trans rights and genders and gender identities and the difference between gender and sex, and we're not talking about abortion.
I'd like to start by quoting a woman who wrote a very interesting article in the Washington Post. Very funny article, too. She said about some of the hypocrisies of this position being anti-choice. We believe in freedom. Your fist must stop where my nose starts. Except this one minor thing is obviously not a big deal, where you have to use your body to build another body from whole cloth, give it eyeballs and a circulatory system, undergo months and months of creeping bodily horror as your torso becomes unrecognizable to you. Familiar smells become off-putting, and then at the end of this process, you have a human being for whom you have to arrange a life. Compare that minor, barely palpable discomfort with the shocking, invasive horror of placing a strip of fabric across your nose when entering a business for 3 to 5 minutes. I shudder just imagining it. You can cough and breathe on whoever you like. It's a God-given right. Nothing worse as a human than to have to conceal your exquisite nose. We don't believe in restricting anyone from living as he chooses unless, of course, it's tangible minor things like who wants to vote or get abortions, or both of which are going to disproportionately, of course, impact people of color. But does that matter? I guess not. After all, it's your body, and of course, we view your autonomy as sacred and worthy of protection. It's just that if your body contains a uterus, it does not technically belong to you. It's more of a vacant lot for us to regulate as we see fit, and your neighbors to be encouraged to sue about. So, no matter our race, our gender, or our zip code, that's in the quote, this is me now.
I don't know if he mentioned the woman's name. I wish he did. I hope he does if he didn't, or I'll have to go back and check to see. It's just hilarious, and like, look at Charlie Kirk's face. Oh my god, that was so good. I'm gonna get mad throughout this, obviously, when Charlie's speaking, but that was so good.
I believe we all should be able to come to a consensus that we can decide for ourselves whether and when to have children. But a handful of politicians today are trying to pass laws that destroy our freedoms, undermine our rights, and endanger our futures. They make decisions that force people to struggle, to simply make ends meet or care for their families, and then shame and blame those that they force that into. And while they're busy fighting for our most basic rights, they hand the money that they take from our health care and our schools to our kids' futures and their corporate donors. We are in a democracy, not a theocracy, and it's nuts to allow government to think they can have a say in the choices a woman makes for her own body. And the last most important point is that by doing this, women will die. Young girls will die.
I already know Charlie's response to this is obviously going to be, but what about the babies that you're killing? What about them? Problem is obviously they view fetuses. I was actually going to say they view fetuses and embryos as being equivalent to human beings outside of the womb, whether you're an infant or toddler or adolescent or teenager, young adult or elderly. But the thing is, it's not true though. It's not equal. They view fetuses as above all of these people because it's so easy to care about a blank slate. It's so easy to care about idea of a human being who has not established an identity because they don't exist in this world yet. They do not yet have personhood. They do not have ideologies. They do not have a gender identity. They do not have a sexuality. They do not have a disability. It's so easy for right-wing extremist conservatives to care about an idea of a person than to care about actual living, breathing human beings with their own right to personhood. Why do we think that is? Any guesses? Any guesses? Let me know in the comments.
I think the entire kind of framing of this debate first needs to start with the type of privilege that we have. Both you and I have age privilege and size privilege.
Yep.
To say that we believe that certain life should not exist. There's been 62 million abortions in America since the ruling of Roe versus Wade. So if you go to just a 7th grade textbook of what is a living being or what is a being that has some sort of life, it will say that it's distinct and that it's whole. What makes a human life so incredibly unique and so magical is you do not need to encourage or tell that life to grow. It's not like a Corvette on an assembly line. Is that human...
That's such a weird word to use for human life. I mean, I get like when you're using it in the context of a metaphor and when you're describing emotions or a certain feeling that you had like listening to a song or watching a movie, but it's just weird to use that word in a debate to say that human life is magical. I don't know, it's just bizarre word choice to me.
Human life will develop naturally. This really kind of goes down to the question of when does human life begin? When does personhood begin?
I talked about this in one of my videos where I talk about secular arguments against abortion and combated it. And the correct answer to when human life begins is human life begins over time. That's it. There are so many components to the development of a fetus. I can't remember all of what I said in that video because it was scripted and I had it all written down, but there are certain parts to development that get stacked on top of each other. One of them being like the development of the spinal cord, the development of neurons in the brain that actually send, pain receptors to the brain so that you can feel pain. All of these concepts, and it happens over time. There's not a singular point that you can point to and say that's when it becomes human life with its own personhood. That's not to say that fetuses and embryos aren't human. They obviously are. They are human. But that does not mean that they have a right to personhood that should be equivalent or exceed our rights as people who are able to get pregnant or anyone's rights.
And the science of embryology says very clearly that life, human life, begins at conception. Now, speaking non-scientifically as a moral argument, we have overseen the slaughter of our fellow citizens over the last couple decades. This is a genocide, dare I say a holocaust of our citizens that has occurred since Roe versus Wade. You talked about women. Well, just statistically, half of the 62 million abortions since Roe versus Wade are 31 million women that never had the chance to live. We have a luxury and a privilege that we are able to say we are old enough and developed enough. We're larger and we're older to say to another life right now that's in the womb that you have no right to exist.
What Charlie Kirk has a privilege of is the privilege of caring so much about the idea of a human being with its own personhood rather than caring about the persons who do have established personhood and are his fellow American citizens.
You talked briefly about the racial part of it. 900 black babies a day are aborted every single day in this country. We need to have a moral question.
I'm sorry, we're not going to sit here and pretend that Charlie Kirk gives a crap about Black lives. We're not going to do that.
If it is not your DNA, it is not your choice.
Interesting point to say. If it's not your DNA, it's not your choice. Okay, what about the DNA of the pregnant person? Do they have the same DNA as the fetus? No, there is a separate DNA that is created when implantation occurs. So we should also have a choice to not want another, if Charlie wants to view it as a human being, to have another human being living inside of us. because it's not our DNA. It's our choice to say, no, I don't want to carry this inside of me. I don't want to remain pregnant. I am essentially evicting it from my body because I am saying no.
It is the most important moral question, I think, we as Americans and we in a free society can debate and discuss, that all life is worthy of protection.
Just a random side note, I feel like I would be so bad at here's the reason why I would be so bad at debates, because I can sit here and react and hear his points and then react to them, but because of my ADHD and because it's hard for really anyone to do this, I think it would be hard for me not to like first off want to interrupt so that I don't forget. But yeah, otherwise I would literally just forget everything he just said and the points that I wanted to make when it was like my turn to speak. I would literally have to be there with a notepad and a pencil, like writing down his points so that I could go through and remember each one of them so that I could combat them. Otherwise, it would just get all jumbled up in my head. So for anyone out there who's hoping I one day will do a debate with anybody, I probably will not. My ADHD brain would not, I don't feel like, do well in that setting. I could be wrong, but I'm not confident in my debate skills at all. And it is a skill. It's not just a matter of being right or wrong. You do have to have a certain skill when it comes to being able to debate and have discussions in this type of format and be successful in correctly articulating your arguments.
Loves it. So lots of problems with what you said. Let me start picking them apart. First, as a Jewish person, I take large offense to comparing a life that never got to exist to a Holocaust which killed my family who did get to exist and were snuffed out. To say those are even comparable is deeply offensive, but let's put that aside for a second. You said that the definition by your own words and by the science of embryology is that life is distinct. But an embryo is not distinct of the mother whom it is literally attached to and dependent on it for all nutrients and all survival. If it can survive in this world, if it can take a breath and go on to live, that is a distinct being, and you've got a great argument there. But without that, you simply do not. And you also contradicted yourself when you said that it is life, and then a minute later you said, never got the chance to live. A life
I
had
didn't
a chance
catch
to live,
that.
it's a life, right? So, in fact, it did not have a chance to live because
Look
it's
at
not a life yet until it is
Charlie!
born.
Look at Charlie's face. Hold on, I need to watch his reaction to that because that's like an oh shit face.
And you also contradicted yourself when you said that it is life, and then a minute later you said, never got the chance to live. A life had a chance to live if it's a life, right? So, in fact...
I'm sorry, watching Charlie's facial expressions, his eyebrows is just like, he like goes from being serious to like his eyebrows go up so far when he's expressing himself, and it just looks so comical. It looks like cartoonish almost to me.
Booyah, baby.
Okay, so you understand how dumb that argument is?
I don't understand.
That's like saying you never had a chance to live if I killed you right now.
That-
what
no,
I'm saying
it
is that
doesn't-
the baby...
Oh my god, serotonin in my body right now.
Life had a chance to live if it's a life, right? So, in fact, it did not have a chance to live because it's not a life yet until it is born. Booyah, baby.
Okay, so you understand how dumb that argument is?
I don't understand.
That's like saying you never had a chance to live if I killed you right now.
That-
what
no,
I'm
it
saying is that
doesn't-
the baby was...
That doesn't make any sense. In terms of like people being murdered or their life being taken away from them, you wouldn't say they never had a chance to live. You would say they had their life taken away, which is the difference, because with an embryo or a fetus, they haven't lived. They have not lived. And Charlie said it, or not Charlie, oh my gosh. Ben said it way more eloquently than I did when he was talking about, what distinct life is.
It's wrong to kill human beings. So you're going to have to make an argument to the audience why either A, this is not a human life, or B, why the mother has the right to murder her own child.
Sure. I'm going to choose the former of those options. Why I
Okay.
do not believe it is a life. If life begins at conception, you would count your life from the moment that egg was fertilized. Sure.
So when does human life begin?
I think the human life begins at birth.
At birth.
Yes.
So it's okay to terminate a child right up to 9 months. Full development, full birth, full breath, feeling, all of it.
No, I don't personally believe that, no. When it can survive without the mother being connected and feeding all
that's
nutrients
3
to
or
it.
4 years old. If you can hunt and gather on yourself, a 2-year-old is totally dependent on the mother. Should we be able to kill 2-year-olds?
You should have seen me as a 2-year-old. I was very crafty.
No, that's not. I've heard this argument too before where they're like, well, children are dependent on their parents, so you're saying that we should be able to kill them. And it's like, it's not the same thing as inhabiting and invading somebody's body. Okay. Like if you have a 2-year-old and that 2-year-old needs one of your organs, you are not obligated to give them your organ. There is bodily autonomy there. But when you give birth, you are consenting to parenthood, assuming that that child is not given up for adoption or placed in somebody else's care. You are consenting to parenthood and all of the obligations that come with that. And that means, not neglecting your child, taking care of them, making sure that they are living healthy lives, be it that is extremely hard to do in a capitalist society and in American society, given the amount of people who want to minimize socialized structures that help people to be able to properly care for their children. But that aside, it's not the same thing.
Animals
A 15-year-old or a 20-year-old has the reason, the capacity, the maturity to be able to not be dependent on other human beings.
I don't know if you've seen 15.
So your moral position is that if you are dependent on
Just
another,
for the record, I don't know what just happened, but like the audio changed. It's not me. It's on the end of this video. Something happened. I think when they were recording, because there's I just heard something weird happen with the audio. So not me. That's on the end of whoever is recording and producing this.
The universal standard of when life begins is when somebody is born.
Wait, do you think when DNA is formed, it's okay just to eliminate it? It will never be formed again. It is distinct. It is unique.
Yeah.
It is whole. The science of embryology says it starts at conception.
Well, that's that's the science.
62 million.
I brought this up earlier, but again, talking about how it's its own distinct DNA, so therefore it has a right to life. It's like, okay, but I have my own distinct DNA too. I am not obligated to keep it in my body and let it stay in my uterus if I don't want to have it there. If I am not consenting to growing a human inside my body, then I have every right to say no. It is a violation of my bodily autonomy to force that on anybody. It doesn't matter. If you have your own personal convictions and beliefs against abortion, great. Don't have one.
Million human beings that were never able to live outside of the womb.
And you're a genocidal murderer every time you masturbate, Charlie.
Why?
Because there is DNA in sperm.
It's kind of a silly argument, but there is a point to it. Like, it's not like once the sperm and the egg fertilizes, it's suddenly this conscious being. That doesn't just happen instantaneously.
Because that's what I said. When a unique DNA is formed with an egg, that's what the science of embryology says.
And the science of science also says.
The science of science.
The science of science.
Okay, I'm like bored with this argument at this point. I'm speeding this up until we can stop.
You deny sperm is alive.
Do I deny that sperm is alive? That is my own sperm. And your fixation with sperm is like creepy and kind of weird,
Your
honestly.
fixation with women's wombs is creepy and kind of weird.
No, actually,
Oh, I love how he was trying to be like, and I think he was looking at the camera when he said that too. Your obsession with sperm is creepy and kind of weird. Like, right, guys? Isn't it creepy? And it's like, no, bro. Like, what's creepy is the fact that these debates still have to happen because you're freaking obsessed with what's going on inside other people's uteruses, to which you don't even have. You don't have a uterus. Charlie Kirk does not have a uterus. Why are you so concerned what's going on inside somebody else's body and what they choose to do as far as their health care goes and whether or not they want to remain pregnant after they're pregnant? Why are you so involved in that? It's also just such a silly argument to bring up. Your obsession with sperm is weird. It's like, we're talking about fertilized eggs. What fertilizes the egg, Charlie?
I wish you had that same dedication to protect the born children in this world.
well, I do. So let me ask you a question.
You don't. You're
At 6
against
weeks,
funding it at most turns.
the child's eyes and eyelids, nose and mouth and tongue have formed. Terminated. That's okay? Child's eyelids, nose, mouth, and tongue. Terminated.
Your eyes, nose, mouth, and tongue does not define a human being with personhood. Somebody who is brain dead has eyes, a mouth, a nose, and tongue. And really, that's an argument that's used. It's an emotional argument because it's like, if you look at a, zoomed in image of a fetus at a certain stage in life and you see a human face, it's meant to evoke an emotional response and not actually establish a critical argument against abortion, because my nose and my eyes and my tongue, that's not what defines me as a human or my humanity. That's not where my humanity comes from. That's not where my consciousness comes from. That's not where my thoughts come from. That's not where my ability to feel empathy comes from. It's all up here, bro. All up here. I was going to say Charlie might not know too much about that.
real human ones, they're developing ones.
Got it. So electrical brain activity can be detected at 6 or 7 weeks, and by the end of the 8th week, terminate?
And I believe what Charlie is quoting, it's not even when he says electrical brain activity, it's brain activity in the brain stem. It's not even close to being brain waves. And brain stem activity, you would still be declared brain dead, even if there are, like, usually when people are declared brain dead, there might still be some activity going on up there. But it's not activity that equates to consciousness or humanity in any sense of the word.
It's not a human.
Got it. Okay. By 10 weeks after conception,
Also, by the way, half a
child can
centimeter-
make bodily movements.
It's half a centimeter big at this
It is a human, for the record. It is a human. It's just not a human being with its own right to personhood. I talked about this before. Human and human being are not always interchangeable.
Let me ask you a question. Are you okay with abortions for people that found out they are pregnant with Down syndrome children?
That's not a fair thing to ask.
Why?
Because I'm saying that fetuses with Down syndrome or fetuses without Down syndrome.
I don't know when you can detect whether or not an embryo or fetus would have Down syndrome or any other disability. I'm not morally okay with that. I find it disturbing. I find it disturbing when if people were to get abortions based on the gender of the child as well. That disturbs me. That's not something that I'm personally okay with. But there isn't really a clear-cut answer or a way to combat that, because at the end of the day, every person has a right to no longer want to be pregnant. That doesn't mean that I think every person that gets an abortion for reasons that I find morally acceptable. But that's not my choice. It's not my body. I don't really have a say there. Hard topic to bring up, and it's usually done strategically to sort of derail the conversation, because we are pro-choice and recognizing that if I'm not the pregnant person, it's not any of my business. That doesn't mean that I don't think abortion should be regulated. I definitely think it should be regulated, and it is regulated. Late-term abortions are less than 1% of the abortions that occur, and they always occur for very extreme reasons, and you have to go through hell to even attempt to get approval from a clinic in order to provide you with that abortion.
So let me ask you a question. What species is it on the animal kingdom? It's not a human life. What kind of life is it?
It's not a life yet.
You just said it was a human life.
No, I did not say it was a human life.
So it's not alive?
It is not.
So something with eyelids, nose, mouth, and a heartbeat is not alive? What is it? Is it dead?
So a sperm with DNA and a head that can swim and find an egg is not alive. Is it dead?
Well, it's not been...
Ben missed a good opportunity here, because Charlie just said, so something with eyes, nose, mouth, tongue is not alive? Do we all get why that's dumb, right? If I were to have an aneurysm and fall down on the ground and be dead, I still look human, because I'm still human. The sentience of human life is not defined by all of this. That's not what defines it. I could still be human and be a dead human. Or I could be alive in the technical sense that my heart could still be kept beating while I'm attached to a machine, but that also does not equate to sentient human life either.
Again, your fixation with sperm, kind of weird.
My sperm is magical and unique and worthy of whatever, the conception you said too. I got good sperm, and that's just a public service announcement for people that want to know that. You can't say my obsession with the first building block of life is weird, but your obsession with 6 hours later or 3 days later when it hits an egg is not weird.
But you admit there's something magical that happens once that sperm and egg meet.
It's not magical. Why do we keep using this term magical? I just hate that adjective for this conversation. Like, it's weird. It's weird to me. Like, why? It's not magical. Like, I can be in awe and in wonder of my existence and life, but just in the format of this debate, it's just a weird adjective to use. And it's almost like it's being used to sort of derail the conversation away from science.
So since you're so bizarrely fascinated with sperm...
You're bizarrely fascinated with women's bodies and regulating them even though you're not a woman.
I am very fascinated in stating...
Can we have... Okay, can we get away from this point? Can we get away from this point, please? I know it's difficult because of who Ben is debating with, but I'm, like, over this topic. Like, just... The fact that Charlie keeps trying to straw man, like, you're obsessed with sperm. It's like, can you just have the actual debate? Like, can you not be a 12-year-old boy for a second, please? It's just so freaking childish, dude.
Ask you a question. Since you're fixated on sperm, a sperm, absent meeting an egg, does what?
It dies.
Once a sperm meets an egg, uninterrupted from abortion interference, does what?
Oftentimes it will fertilize it. Obviously not always.
live.
No, and begin.
And grow.
And continue.
And nourish,
continue the building
and
blocks
develop,
of it continues.
and live a full life.
Not true.
So your argument of your kind of creepy fixation with sperm, which is that the sperm, absent the fertilization of the egg,
You want to keep saying
does
creepy
not
fixation on
continue
sperm
to
so your
grow.
followers can
But
message
once
that to
the
me.
sperm
You have a creepy fixation
meets
with
with
controlling
eggs,
women's bodies. So
it
stop that
turns
phrase.
into
You want me
a
to listen
human
to you.
life
Stop that phrase.
and grows
If I'm making a
and
story,
develops.
stop. If I'm making a
You're the
side-
one
Charlie.
that wants to interfere and
Charlie,
destroy
I'm
a
not hearing this
baby.
point because
You're talking about a discussion that involves issues that have to do with things like sperm and eggs, because how do babies come into existence, Charlie? You're a grown adult having an abortion debate. This is why, honestly, it can be really annoying to see two cis men trying to have this debate, because this is ridiculous. Charlie apparently got triggered because he heard the word sperm too much, and now he can't get it out of his head.
if you're
be
gonna
able
make-
to grow.
If you want to make a scientific argument,
I have.
then don't make a stupid point over and over again about part of that scientific
No, I'm
argument.
just clarifying the lack of wisdom in your argument,
Lack of
where you
wisdom
say
how?
sperm independent of meeting an egg does what?
Again, he's not acknowledging what Ben Gleib was trying to say. He was trying to say, stop saying that I have a fixation on sperm, because it's childish and it doesn't mean anything, and there's no substance to that.
And an
No,
egg.
it lives. A sperm meeting an
Oh,
egg,
sperm meeting an egg,
uninterfered with an abortionist that does what?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
But when it does develop, it
It eventually becomes
becomes
alive
you,
when it's born.
or me,
When it's born.
or our fellow human beings.
And when it doesn't, when it leads to a miscarriage or an ectopic pregnancy, it doesn't lead to those things. And then abortions can, or not even abortions, DNC procedures can help clear that out so the woman can go on to have a family in the future. Let me ask you a question. You're so against abortion and protecting lives,
I'm very pro-baby.
but you are okay with abortion if it saves a woman's life. Why?
I hate how obsessive Charlie is with looking directly at the camera and smiling. It's killing me. It's just, I don't know. It's just weird. It's just like giving me the creeps. It just comes off so insincere and fake and almost like scripted, like he planned to say this comment at some point. It's like, I'm pro baby.
Exceedingly rare. And in fact,
Great.
over 1,000 OBGYNs, nurses, and neonatologists signed a declaration stating, quote, as experienced practitioners and researchers in gynecology, we affirm that direct abortion, the purposeful destruction of an unborn child, is almost never medically necessary to save the life of a woman. So in the extraordinarily rare case, which is so hard to find and pinpoint,
Well, it's not so hard to find. It happens, and there's many.
very rare. Well, these
millions of
1,000
documented cases.
OBGYNs say no.
There are plenty of conditions outside pregnancy that you can have that you need to have medication for. And if you're pregnant, you can't get the proper treatment that you need to have in order for you to survive. I mean, just think about it, like if a person has cancer and they're pregnant, they find out that they knew that they had cancer and they accidentally get pregnant, or they found out that they had cancer while they were pregnant and they have to get chemo in order to live, the best thing for that person to do, if they are going to receive treatment, if they want to survive, is to have an abortion and continue seeking treatment. I feel like those cases are not being included in this, because I'm sure that there are many medical conditions that you can have that would interfere with the pregnancy, into which you wouldn't be able to take care of yourself, let alone continuing to try to grow a life inside of a body that is already not working properly for you.
So try not to use a distracting statistic.
well-
You're okay with it in those rare instances. Why?
Because there could be other children in the future that
Right,
could be born.
that's my whole argument.
However,
if a woman's
it's
not ready to have a child now, there could be other children in the future when they are ready to raise them
I will even
successfully
correct,
in life.
I will correct my own previous statement by saying I don't even think it's ever medically necessary, because these 1,000 OBGYNs and nurses have said you can have cesarean sections. That's not to say there might not be necessary medical treatments, but to use abortion as the medical necessary treatment, I think is almost never the case whatsoever. Case closed.
He's so smug right now on this, but it is weird. This whatever study he's pulling from, it's like, okay, who are these 1,000 OBGYNs? Like, I don't know any of their credentials. I would venture to guess that there are pro-life OBGYNs. So I'm a bit confused at this point, because like that's a very small group. And like I said earlier, there could be medical conditions involved that OBGYNs do not treat and do not fully understand or have the education to understand what treatment needs to be done for that patient outside of what their specialty is, which is being an OBGYN, that can impact pregnancy and put the pregnant person's life at risk.
100 million others say that
So
I'm right.
let me ask you a question. You retweet Planned Parenthood quite a lot.
Sure.
What do you have to say about the Planned Parenthood founder, Margaret Sanger, who's a eugenicist, who says we don't want the word to go out that we want to exterminate the black population? Does that bother you that Planned Parenthood is a eugenicist organization?
I've never heard that quote.
How about this one?
I
How
doubt
about-
the authenticity of that quote, but if it's true, I obviously condemn that quote.
Our goal is to eliminate human beings who never should have been born at all, or birth control is nothing more or less weeding out the unfit. Are you comfortable associating yourself with eugenicists?
I'm not comfortable associating myself with eugenicists or that quote, if that answers your question.
This is sort of a straw man and kind of derails the conversation as well, because just because this person happened to be pro-choice and fight for pro-choice rights, but they were also a eugenicist, does not thereby mean that people that are pro-choice and for protecting the rights of bodily autonomy therefore support eugenicists. Like, that's just not accurate.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure, because
Awesome.
I got plenty for you.
Awesome. How many children do you have?
None yet.
Why?
Well, I got married in May, so it's a work in progress.
So you're working on having kids soon. Why haven't you adopted yet? Are you going to adopt kids
Well,
that
I'm
are in
married,
need of help?
So I do kind of live a busy life. But
We
I
all
would love to
busy
adopt.
lives.
Actually, it's on the table.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. So Charlie's going to adopt soon. Excellent.
Potentially.
At 8 weeks, we have tails. At 8 weeks, an embryo has tails. Do humans have tails, Charlie?
Okay, this was the clip that I saw, and this is what made me want to watch this video. Why am I only 22 minutes in? Why am I only 22 minutes in an hour and 20-minute debate? I am going to hate editing this video. I'm going to hate it, hate it, hate it. You guys better hit that like button, because I guarantee you that I am going to not have a fun time editing all this footage.
I'm not exactly sure the essence of the
Do
question.
human beings have tails? You have a tail.
You know, I have never met anyone.
Guys,
with a tail.
just look at Charlie's face. Just watch his face during this exchange.
I would love to
busy
adopt.
life.
Actually, it's on the table.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. So Charlie's going to adopt soon. Excellent.
Potentially.
At 8 weeks, we have tails. At 8 weeks, an embryo has tails. Do humans have tails, Charlie?
I'm sorry, what?
Serious question. Do human beings have tails?
I'm not exactly sure the essence of the
Do
question.
human beings have tails? You have a tail.
You know, I have never met anyone with a tail. I'm not exactly sure the essence.
Exactly. But fetuses have tails. Kind of proves that at that phase, they are not a human being. They got tails. Humans don't have tails. We're not dinosaurs. Let me even show you a photo, if I may, okay? Do you truly, in your heart of hearts, truly believe that this is a human being? This,
Without a doubt.
without a doubt?
Yes.
This is a dolphin fetus.
So let me,
Without a doubt, a dolphin fetus is a human being. This is a human fetus. Look how similar they look, but quite different. Dolphin. You just confirmed that a dolphin, in life, do you confuse dolphins for human babies often?
So let me
You go
ask
to
you a
SeaWorld and you're like, someone's got human babies in that aquarium. Get the human babies out of the aquarium.
well, you labeled it as a human fetus.
No,
so
I
you
did
that
not.
dishonest.
No, I did not.
He didn't. He didn't though. He didn't though. He said, do humans have tails? Charlie stumbled around the question because he was scared he was going to get himself in a pickle. Do you believe in your heart of hearts that this is a human being? And then Charlie says yes, and he's like, this is a dolphin fetus. This is genius. This clip, this part was just so genius, because it shows, as much as they tried to say that, look, it has it's developing eyes and a nose and a mouth, and then to blatantly not be able to tell a difference between a dolphin fetus and a human fetus, which is fine. I probably wouldn't have been able to tell a difference either. That's kind of the point, though.
No,
And you just confirmed that.
Let me ask you: human and a dolphin. Is it okay to kill one, not the other? Is there a difference morally between a human and a dolphin?
I don't like to kill dolphins, but when
Do
they're
you
living,
like to kill babies?
no, I don't. And when they're living, I certainly am not in favor of
Wait, so
killing either. But obviously, I protect a human
hold
over
up,
a dolphin.
hold up the human one.
Sure.
Is that not alive?
No, it is not alive.
Well, then how is it able to have a heartbeat?
It's attached to an alive being called a woman.
Wait,
who
so
is
it
the
doesn't
mother.
have a heartbeat, does it?
No, it doesn't have a true
Oh,
heartbeat.
oh, yes, it does.
At some point,
What is detectable and called the heartbeat is not actually a fully developed human heart. It's cardiac cells that will eventually become a human heart if the fetus or embryo progresses to that point. Lots of things could happen that would make it so it doesn't progress to that point, whether that be spontaneous miscarriage or spontaneous abortion, or going out and getting a medical abortion.
Child's eyes and eyelids, nose and mouth, and tongue form
no,
not
no,
alive.
it is not a heartbeat at 22 weeks.
So wait, hold on. It's either
Quit talking about the eyes and mouth and nose, acting like that defines life. If Charlie were to have a heart attack in the middle of this debate and fall down dead, he is going to still have eyes, a mouth, and a nose. He's not alive. Hi friends, so due to this debate being so long, I have had to cut it up into parts. So that is the end of part 1. I am going to go ahead and show you an upcoming clip that will probably be in part 2. I'm not sure how many parts there will be yet. We will have to see. But here comes that clip, and I will catch you in the next one. Bro, if I was playing a drinking game and I took a shot every time Charlie said something about the child's eyes, eyelids, mouth, tongue growing, or how Ben Glebe is obsessed with sperm, I would literally be dead right now. And you know what? I'd be dead and I would still have eyes and a nose and a mouth and a tongue, Charlie Kirk. Special voice shout out to my top patron, Queen of Beams, my Rice Crisp Snacks, Phelan S. and Birdie, and my mod mates, Courtney, Laura A., Sarah Z., and Elaine C.